All right, so this is our second video on how to make a moon mosaic. In the first video, we did a simplified case, the case of a telescope that covers the entire moon in a single shot. So you just have to take one red, one green, one blue. And we learned a lot of skills in that one, but not all the skills that we need to truly make a mosaic. A mosaic is when you can't cover the whole moon in a single shot, and you have to tile over and over and over again, and then piece the tiles together. In the previous video, we just had to piece the red to the green to the blue, but we didn't have to piece geometrically on the sky. And that's what we're going to do in this video. But you should watch the other video first, because the stuff that we learned in that video, I'm just going to do quickly in this video, and instead focus on the things that we didn't do in the previous video in this video. Okay, so I have an observation loaded up. It's a 5x5 mosaic. So that's 25 tiles times 3 filters deep. So that's 75. And this is from prompt 5. Prompt 5 has a 1K by 1K chip. So, pretty small. We also have prompt 6 at our site in Chile. It has a 2K by 2K chip. And those are 4 times the size, and so things are a lot slower if you're processing prompt 6 data. So in this demo, I'm going to do prompt 5. But keep in mind, it may be worth spending the extra time to do prompt 6. Because of all those extra pixels, you can get a better aligned image, better quality image. Anyway, let's do prompt 5. Okay, so step 1, as we learned last time, is cleaning. So I'm going to go here to the Cosmetic Correction tab, select all the images, and submit. It's not taking very long at all. Okay, those are all cleaned for hot pixels, cold pixels, bad columns, etc. Okay. Next, we go to the Aligner tab. We're going to select all the images. We're going to go into Mosaic mode. Going to disable rotation, scale, and skew, again, as we talked about previously. Going to switch to features-based alignment. Going to use AKs. And as I described before, 0.4 is the default. But with this particular telescope, what we learn, not after this step, but after the next step, that leads to what we call a Frankenmoon. If the number is too high, you'll get stacks that look like this. If the number's too high, it finds too many alignment points, and it can't piece it together right. If the number's too low, it doesn't find enough alignment points, and you end up with disjoint subsets. But if the number's just right, you'll get a good aligned image. Anyway, there's no way to know at this stage. I recommend you start with 0.4, you go through, you make one of your stacks, and if it looks good, good guess. If not, you come back and readjust. With prompt 5, both last year and this year, I've noticed you need to go down to 0.3. So let's just do it now to save time on the video. But normally you would have to take a guess, see how it turned out, and go back and adjust. Okay. I'm going to go down here and I'm going to submit. And this is a time-consuming process. Depending on how busy the server is, it's not very busy right now, I don't think, because it's late at night. If it's not very busy, this could take 10 or 20 minutes. And if it is very busy, it could take even longer. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pause the video and I'll come back when it's done. All right, so the alignment is done. And you can see here, it's taken the first square and the image is now this big. Most of it's empty, but what it did is it took that square and figured out where it goes in that big empty space. And the next one here, I'll click on it and it will load piece by piece. And you see it's going to fit in the next square down. See how they fit together? And it does it for every one that it can. But important thing to realize is it can't do it for every square. This is not a full moon, so it's a quarter moon. So about half of the moon is dark. And in the squares where it's completely dark, there's nothing to latch onto, so they don't align. So you will get messages like this at the bottom. All these H alphas here, it could not align. All of these O3s, it could not align. And all of these U bands, it could not align. But that's okay. It was able to align the rest of them. So don't worry about those. I know the message says cannot align over and over, but it's okay. It aligned the ones that it needed to. Now, we're going to move on to the stacker. In the previous video, we had to skip this step because, we had a single red image that covered the whole moon. There weren't little ones that needed to be combined. Anyway, now we're going to take all the red ones and stick them together, stack them. Then all the green ones, and then all the blue ones. This is pretty easy. We're going to filter on underscore H alpha underscore. That gets rid of anything that's not an H alpha. And so we can select all of them. You filter here to cut the list down. You select all of them. And then you want to check the list. Make sure you don't have any extra stuff in there that may have H alpha in the name, maybe previous stacking attempts. If you do, just deselect it. But the key thing in this step is making sure the first one is one of the images that aligned. If I go back to the previous step, the first one that did not align was number 29, H alpha 29. The first one on the list is H alpha 25. In fact, it is this one here, which did align. It's very important that the first one in the list is one that aligned. Because what it will do is it will take the first one in the list, and then it'll find any other one in the list of the same size. And if the first one did not align, it's only going to just look at the ones that did not align. And that's of no help to us. So make sure the first one aligned. If it didn't, just deselect it and check the second. Deselect it, check the third until you come across one that'll successfully aligned. Okay, now our first one did, so we're good to go. Okay, now these other settings. Mode should be set to average. Rejection should be set to none. Later on, when we do the planets and other things, we'll set it to Chauvenet. If you've been doing some of that work, remember to set it back to none for these mosaics. Scaling should be none. Smart stacking should be none. The equalizations we want to turn on. Now, these are only for mosaics. When you put the tiles together, you'll often see the seams between the different tiles. And this is because from tile to tile, the observing conditions changed. You're looking through slightly different amount of air mass. Perhaps thin cloud cover was changing. And so they're slightly different brightnesses. And those seams, we don't want them. So what the equalizations do is they find small numbers to add to each tile, numbers close to 1 to multiply each tile by, and finds the optimal set of numbers such that when you add these numbers and multiply these numbers and then put the tiles together, the seams are minimized as much as possible. Now, this is just a best guess, turning all these on. They can also lead to problems. So if we left it like this and ran it, after the next step, after we have our stacks and we group them and color them, just jumping ahead a little bit, it'll look like this. And at first glance, that's great. That looks wonderful. We have all sorts of detail. We have subtle coloration, but we also have a color gradient going across the moon. See how it's greener on this side, redder on this side? Probably what's going on here, the flats that we used were a little bit out of date, a couple days out of date. And so if the flats aren't a perfect match, you will get these subtle color gradations. And you don't want them because we're going to accentuate the colors in this image. And so that green will be accentuated, this purple will be accentuated. Now, this is not a super bad case. Sometimes the flats can be really outdated and you have images like this. And there's nothing you can do to fix that except turn the color off after you're all done and have a monochromatic image. The details are still great. It's just the colors are overwhelmed by poor calibration, poor flats. We can't see the intrinsic lunar colors. So sometimes it's that bad. This is not too bad. And you can deal with it by coming back to the stacking step and turning off the multiplicative equalization. Or you can leave it on and turn this way down. I'm just going to turn it off. Now, this means that when we make the image, we may see some seams. We're not doing everything we can to get rid of seams. We're going to try this compromise. Maybe have a little bit of seamage, but get rid of that color gradient. So we'll see. The last bit here, propagate mask should be off. Okay. It doesn't always appear, but if it does, it should be off. Okay. I'm going to run this. And this normally takes a couple minutes, so I'm just going to pause the video. Okay, this one's almost done. Now, while it's loading, if you look over here, you see these messages, shape mismatch. And you may think, oh no, I've screwed something up. It's not the case. It says it expected a big image, one that's this big, but only found a tiny one. So these are the images that didn't have anything in them. They're the ones that did not align in the previous step. And since they didn't align, they're not the same size as the first image in the list. And so it can't stack them. That's all that's telling you. And there's only a handful here. So that means there are a bunch that did work. Now let's come over here and take a look at it. I filtered on the word stack. If you had an internet outage, it will come back not with the word stack in it, but the word file. Anyway, let's let it load. And this is where we check to make sure we got the ratio threshold right. If we got it right, we have a good alignment. If it's too high, we get a Frankenmoon and have to lower it. And that's actually what we found with this data set. And we had to lower it from 0.4 to 0.3. If it's too low, you get disjoint subsets or missing pieces. This looks good. 0.3 was a good one for this particular data set. So now we can proceed with the other ones. I'll get rid of the stack filter and filter on _03. Select them. Make sure we don't have anything else in there that we don't want. Okay. And I'm going to submit it. Again, this takes a couple minutes, so I'm going to pause the video. Okay, that one just finished up. Now I'm going to filter on underscore U underscore, select them all, submit. And again, takes a couple minutes, going to pause the video. Okay, that one just finished up. Okay. Let's filter on the word stack, and here are the three stacks. The red one, the green one. Let it load in. And these look really good. Again, they're taken from Cerro Tololo Inter-American Observatory. The atmosphere is really great there. So we have really sharp images. And that's the blue one. Okay, the rest is pretty similar to what we saw in the previous video. So we'll go through it pretty quickly. Select them all, group them. Get rid of the word stack. Find our group. There it is. Load it up. Zoom to fit. While it's loading, I'm going to color the first layer red, the H alpha layer. Color the O3 layer green. And the U layer blue. Good. And notice that we don't have that same color gradient that we had before. This is with multiplicative equalization on. This is with it off. It's not as bad, and I really don't see seams. So it was a good decision. Again, you only find this out by trying it the default way and then going back and making corrections. Okay, let's go to display settings. We're going to link the other two layers to, in this case, the U band. Doesn't matter really. And to deal with the regions that are very saturated, like there, I'm going to go into mid-tone mode. Hit the default. Much better. Looks a little dark to me, so I'm going to lower the mid-tone level. Let's try 95. Let's try 90. It's 9. Give it a second to update. 9D. There you go. That looks pretty good. Background level, I'm going to increase it. I don't want to increase it so much that the moon gets dark. You got to remember there are a lot of pixels here, so it takes it a moment to update. Let's try 50. $60. I didn't see a change. 70. There we go. That's too much. Take it back down to 60. That keeps everything off the moon nice and dark. Okay. And you want to save it. To your workspace. File, workspace. Save. Okay. And you want to export to JPEG. So that looks pretty good. Want to get it in the right orientation. I think that's correct. Crop it as you see fit. And then color adjust it. Come down here, find the color saturation, see how much we can pull out those colors. See all that nice color detail? It helps to have a sharp image. Now, I don't think I'm going to go up too high because I am pulling out some unnatural colors at the edges there. Maybe I'll do 50%. Again, you can play with sharpening, clarity, whatever it might be called on your photo editor. Try to bring out the sharpness of the craters, but again, be careful not to overdo it. And lastly, you may want to check the brightness levels. I think I can bring it up a little bit. Don't want to bring it up too much because it saturates again around the craters. Maybe just a little bit. Okay. There you go. All right.